What would your price be with Russia? You could be like Tim Pool, and I don't know how much he
That's a
made
good
quite a bit.
segue to Tim Pool. Yeah, he made. Oh, I'd hate to give you a number, but I think it's in the neighborhood of $4 million. Um, I think that's what he got paid out, and he didn't have to give any of that back. Did you know? I didn't know that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and I just want to clarify to the audience, he is technically, from a legal perspective, a victim because he didn't know, right? He just didn't do his due diligence enough to investigate that the person financing his entire media operation didn't fucking exist. I mean, I guess if you want to say that it's it's a wild world where that is the best case scenario. It's like, yeah, I just didn't know I was being funded by the Russian fucking government, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and that's what's so silly. It's because like obviously he obviously knew something was up, but he knew to save his own skin. He just wouldn't like investigate any further. He would just take a good thing and he wouldn't corrupt it by like making sure the money was clean. Because who's going to pay like hundreds of thousands of dollars
A
for a
month.
YouTube video that gets like I don't know, like 30,000 views, you know?
Well, that's the problem with this right wing media circle is the amount of money. So right wing media, I'm sure as you know, it dominates the online world. I mean, so left wing media, it dominates like legitimate news and legacy stuff. But in terms of like YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Spotify, all of that, it's dominated by the right wing. That is where I mean people like to say like if you listen to like political scientists they'll tell you that like what Obama did in that 2008 and 2012 election with Facebook was unprecedented and the left owns the online world. That is not true today. The idea like the algorithm is it's made for right wingers almost, which is hilarious when these people try to cry and pretend that they're censored because it's like you're the most like volume of engagement on these platforms. Like it's not even close.
Oh yeah, and then like to your point, like even just right adjacent people. So I'm thinking like the Joe Rogans, the Theo Vaughns, people who
Right.
are. I guess they get this right adjacent kind of title because they're willing to have people of all perspectives on. So I'm assuming that's why they're getting this title. But those are the biggest podcasts on the planet, or at least in the U.S. I don't know about on the planet, but at least I've seen the Spotify numbers, and I believe Theo Vaughn and Rogan are both in the top 10, if not top five, and then a host of other podcasts just do absolute numbers.
Oh yeah,
Tim
it's
Pool,
it's
especially.
it's yeah, and Tim Pool's audience is massive. And there's no denying their success. Like I want to give credit where credit's due. These people have crafted an audience of millions of people, millions. Ben Shapiro is probably the most dominant guy, and then Pool, Crowder, Michael Knoll, like Candace Owens, like these people are massive. They're just massive, and they can't be understated. So credit where it's due, you know?
Oh yeah, it certainly takes talent. Although I'm not as big of a. Maybe you consume more of his content than I. I don't really know exactly what Tim Pool's all about, but from what I've seen about him, he doesn't strike me as someone who's terribly impressive. I mean, I think he, stays up to date about current events, but and maybe maybe this is a bit of a self fellation instead of flagellation, so self fellation. But I would say like my level of knowledge is probably at least on par with Tim Pool's, and this is something that we do once a week, and we we prepare for it once a week, and he does like a daily show or multiple times a week, and at
Yeah.
least.
And well, and it happens all the time. And by the way, and I'm not trying to beat him over the head against this. But it happens all the time on his show where like he'll cite something, he'll blow up, he'll get extremely angry, he'll get his talking points out, and then like the leftist guy will be like, no, 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 that's not true. And then they'll look it up, and then sure enough, the left wing guy's right. So like Luke Beasley went on there not that long ago, and he had a debate about January 6th. I can't remember the exact specific. I'll play the clip.
You have.
No,
right?
I
So
haven't.
so
People
no,
that you
stop,
talk
stop.
about
You don't know
are-
anything about these January 6 cases. You don't know why these people are in jail. You don't know that a man is in Brooklyn right now for 3 years without charge or trial. And when Donald Trump says these people have been held for too long, you say, no, Trump is wrong. Keep them locked up. That's fucking fascist. Dude, you've been sitting here with no knowledge of the specifics of some of these cases. There is a man in Brooklyn right now. I'm going to say it again. No charges whatsoever brought. And he's been in jail for 3 fucking years. For you to sit there and say it is good that he remains locked up is fascism. That is saying the hierarchical system of the courts and the government is just, and the process is all that matters. And I am saying perhaps 3 years is enough, because I actually have moral logic and an understanding of these cases.
A few moments later.
Now we got a problem. Let's try this again. Let's try a secondary source. Let's see. There it is. They introduced evidence that Tarrio discussed with associates a plan to have a large crowd in Washington storm government buildings in a scheme they called 1776 Returns, in which the Winter Palace was used as an apparent code for the U.S. Capitol. In a message, he said, make no mistake, we did this, do what must be done, and he directed the Proud Boys to do it again. So the question then becomes, in the bigger picture...
So are you going to at all acknowledge that you just blew up over something that I was absolutely citing fairly?
I don't think you cited it fairly.
I think people should be prosecuted for engaging in plans to overthrow a government. That's kind of
that's a very loose definition of plans to overthrow the government.
Y'all don't seem to be that informed.
Wait, look.
But yeah, so basically they looked it up, and Luke Beasley basically calls him out, and he's like, are you going to acknowledge the fact that I just fairly cited that and you blew up over fucking nothing? And then Tim Pool's like, no, I'm not going to acknowledge that. It's like, it's wild to me. It's sort of like when Jamie pulls up something on Rogan, and it's like, hey, are you going to like acknowledge this? And they're like, no. It's like, okay. I don't know what to do from here. He's not a dumb guy, though. I don't want you to think like Tim Pool's like dumb. I think there's just this urge that he has. He's definitely not like committed to like being well read. So like for all of his other like critiques, Ben Shapiro is a well read individual, right? Sagar, Crystal, I'd say even Emily, they're well read, right? But Tim Pool, is not at that level. And he's not a journalist, he's a commentator, but he goes out of his way to have a unique interpretation, and that can sometimes get in the way of like facts. Like a lot of his stuff is like non sequitur, like it doesn't, like none of the stuff he says follows. Like
Yeah.
And again, I wish I could have more examples, but I'm sure I'll find clips of just random, Tim Pool, not even getting owned, but just like, okay, this doesn't work. Like what you're saying is not like logically consistent.
Yeah, I've only in terms of Tim Pool, I see clips of his quite often because he seems to stay within like low grade controversy basically like constantly. But the only time I've listened to like a full thing of Tim Pool's is when he had a debate between Richard Spencer and
Andrew Wilson.
Andrew Wilson, and I mean he just seems. I mean, he seems like he's probably a fairly nice guy. You probably can get along with him fairly well, but yeah, he didn't bring much to, and I think his role was a moderator in that, but he didn't really bring a lot to the discussion. So,
yeah, I'd agree with that. And listen, like I think Tim Pool, out of most of the people that we've mentioned today, like if it was just dudes that we were gonna have fun and kick it at a bar. Like, I think Tim might be one of the more fun ones to do that with. I don't think that we'd have nearly the amount of like productive conversations we'd have. Because like he doesn't understand like really the structure of a lot of stuff that happens in politics. For example, like how like the appeals process works. I mean, he has the basic stuff down, like 3 branches, except all that, but he doesn't quite understand that like when the court says no, that means no, and like when the president signs a bill, like there's no really going back on that past that. He doesn't understand a lot of this stuff. Which is, it's totally fine. Or like the fact that, like, for example, like this new budget bill, so they're going to pass the budget, and then in like September, October-ish area, they're going to have the appropriations where they're like, okay, we voted back in like June that the military is going to get $900 billion. Where do we want the $900 billion to go? He doesn't quite understand that there's like another process after it gets passed. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't quite. It's like, no. There's no. Anyway, which a lot of people are like that. But like, especially people who didn't grow up in politics. Like Tim Pool didn't. Like he was an activist and a reporter more than anything. So.